Greetings, my name is Vicky, and I am 40 years old. Having a career has always been my aspiration, as I desired independence. Thankfully, I was able to achieve it when I entered the professional world. Being financially savvy and constantly seeking opportunities to increase my income and improve my economic status has been deeply ingrained in me since a young age. This ideology was emphasized by my mother, who stressed the importance of financial stability and independence when I left home to pursue my dreams as a business analyst. When I first met my husband, Oliver, he was incredibly kind and affectionate. However, I cannot say the same about my in-laws. It's quite astonishing that we managed to get married despite the animosity I experienced from my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and mother-in-law. Oliver and I have been married for 10 years, and like any couple, we have had our fair share of ups and downs. Lately, though, I have noticed a change in him. He seems somewhat distant, and I suspect it may be due to some life-altering news we received several months ago. I remember that day vividly. Oliver found me in the kitchen shortly after I returned home from work. I was filled with joy and excitement because I had received the most incredible news. "Hey, babe. Hey, honey. Wow, you sound so happy. What's making my wife so cheerful? Share the good news." To be honest, it feels surreal. I'm not even sure if I can believe what just happened. Please calm down and don't keep me waiting any longer. Come on, spill the news. All right, I recently returned from my job. And I received a promotion that I began celebrating with a happy dance to explain further. Throughout our 10-year marriage, Oliver and I, like most couples, have developed several inside jokes and behaviors as a result of sharing many intimate life experiences. One of these routines involves a joyful dance that we perform when we are excited. We created this dance at the beginning of our relationship and have continued to use it ever since. We've done it at our graduation, engagement party, wedding, and of course, when we found out we were expecting a baby. It has become our cute little tradition. However, for some reason, when I opened my eyes and snapped out of my excitement, I noticed that Oliver wasn't joining in the happy dance. Confused and a bit saddened, I asked him why he wasn't participating in the joyful dance. Oliver sighed and sounded disgruntled and frustrated. "I'm happy for you, babe, but I also received some work-related news today. I got laid off," he replied. His head drooped in sadness and what seemed like embarrassment. The silence in the room was overwhelming, and the tension could be cut with a knife. I genuinely didn't know what to say. I felt terrible for my husband, and I knew that my elation over my good news only added salt to his already painful wound. "I'm so sorry, Oliver. This situation is devastating," I said, trying to console him. "Yeah, well, I guess that's just a part of life," he responded, his voice filled with resignation. There was nothing more to say. "Let's do something tonight. How about going out to a local fast food restaurant? It can be greasy, but it might make you feel better." "Honestly, Vicky, I'm not really in the mood. Thank you for the offer, though. I think I want to spend some time alone." Congratulations, by the way. The following days were less awkward, but still uncomfortable. However, I could sense a growing resentment between us. It's not difficult to suspect that Oliver was feeling jealous and envious due to the circumstances. It's somewhat understandable, considering he was in a vulnerable state at the time. I would like to mention that Oliver is quite traditional. He enjoys the idea of the father being the sole breadwinner and coming home to a wife who takes care of the household chores. Unfortunately, that kind of lifestyle is not practical in today's economy. You would need to be financially stable to live that way, and unfortunately, we were not capable of doing so. We prioritized our children's education by sending them to private schools. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, that kind of lifestyle doesn't really appeal to me. I grew up believing that everyone should work for themselves, make a name for themselves, and achieve financial freedom. With my recent promotion, I am well on my way to living a comfortable life. getting laid off is obviously a very sensitive subject. So when he would spend all day lounging around and doing nothing, it was a sore point for me. In addition to neglecting household chores, Oliver spent his days watching documentaries and playing video games. I allowed this behavior for a month, but he remained in a state of depression. Despite my dislike for Oliver's extended family in-laws, I put aside my pride and endured their snarky and rude comments in order to provide him with comfort and compassion. "Oh, you poor thing. I hate seeing you like this, big bro," one of them sympathized. On one particular day, my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and mother-in-law all visited at the same time. This made me feel quite uncomfortable and slightly panicked, as it meant I would be subjected to 3 times the amount of negativity in my own home. "Honestly, I'm so surprised that you got laid off. I thought Vicky would lose her job before you. This is truly shocking," one of them exclaimed. Come to think of it, women nowadays are more likely to be laid off, right? It makes sense since they're usually at home taking care of the kids and household. So why would you, of all people, get laid off? Another chimed in with a misguided ideology. Before I could respond to Benjamin's foolish statement, my obnoxiously loud mother-in-law barged in from the kitchen carrying a tray of food and drinks for her ailing son. The amount of pampering and coddling he received made it seem as if he had broken every bone in his body. It was truly a shame. In the midst of this unfortunate situation, my heart aches for my beloved child. I am overwhelmed with sadness and on the verge of tears. It has been a challenging time, but I assure you, I will not succumb to despair. Thankfully, Vicky has been a pillar of support for us during these trying times. As a devoted wife and mother, she stands by her husband, offering her unwavering assistance. What has become of this world? It is disheartening to think that Oliver has adopted such outdated philosophies. Vicky, I believe it would be wise for you to prepare dinner for all of us. It seems we will be here for quite some time. My emotions were in turmoil as I had just returned home from an incredibly exhausting day at work. I had to stay an additional 4 hours to appease my boss, fearing that any sign of complacency after receiving a promotion could lead to demotion or even termination. The last thing we needed was 2 unemployed individuals in our household. Thus, I always strive to maintain peak performance and ensure that I remained at the top of my game. Unfortunately, this meant that I often arrived home completely drained. Most days, I would have to take on the responsibility of cooking meals, as Oliver was experiencing bouts of depression and relied on me to provide for him. On particularly hectic workdays, I longed for the convenience of coming home to a pre-prepared meal. Therefore, I would kindly and sensitively ask Oliver if he could prepare dinner for me when I was approximately an hour away from finishing work. This way, upon my arrival, I could enjoy a meal, retire to bed, and face the challenges of the following day with renewed vigor. Despite my annoyance, I would allow it to pass, but occasionally I wouldn't tolerate it. And in those moments, he would reluctantly prepare dinner, and he would always prepare it with subpar quality, which is surprising because prior to hearing about his job loss, he was the superior cook between the two of us. Needless to say, I was not in the mood to cook, especially for such a large group of people, as I was accustomed to making dinner for 2, since it was just Oliver and me in the household. Thank goodness my children were staying with friends, so we didn't need to worry too much about preparing dinner for them as well. Actually, I'm feeling quite sore and fatigued from recent work. Is it acceptable if we order some food instead? I know an excellent restaurant that serves delicious pasta. My sister-in-law and mother-in-law reacted quite dramatically, and my brother-in-law simply shook his head. Oliver remained unresponsive. How dare you, Vicky? Honestly, I am so appalled right now. We are your guests, and we rarely come over here because you never invite us, and this is how you treat us. My mother simply requested a nice homemade meal. The least you could do is serve us. Yes, sis, I must say I am disappointed that he would say something like that. It doesn't have to be an elaborate meal. Besides, I am not in the mood for pasta. I swear, this younger generation is corrupting even us adults. How could you even pose such a question, Vicky? We understand you're being employed and incredibly busy, feeling exhausted. Can't you perceive that your husband is upset? Can't you do this one favor for him? After all, you are his wife, and it's expected of you to handle the cooking anyway. I was so overwhelmed by all the noise and shouting that, in an attempt to calm the situation, I said, "Look, I understand that you all feel like guests, even though you're actually family and not random strangers I'm trying to impress. But, as I mentioned earlier, I am quite fatigued. However, since you all feel so strongly about it, I will prepare dinner. I apologize for making that suggestion. Please bear with me though, as making dinner might take some time due to my exhaustion." As I stood up to go and make dinner for my unappreciative in-laws, I heard Oliver speak up after what seemed like a while. What he said honestly surprised me. "She's been forcing me to make dinner." As if the dramatic gasp I heard moments ago wasn't enough, I could sense both my mother-in-law and sister-in-law gasping even louder and clutching their pearls when I turned around. Furthermore, Benjamin, in addition to shaking his head, even more vigorously this time, had a visible expression of disgust directed towards me. "She did what? Are you out of your mind, Vicky? How selfish could you be?" Maybe I'm the antagonist in this narrative. Well, let me tell you, at that particular moment, it definitely began to feel that way. I was subjected to an attack for a few minutes by some extremely angry relatives who label me as self-centered and wicked for occasionally asking my husband to prepare dinner. I must clarify that it wasn't a daily occurrence, only on those days when I was particularly exhausted and on the verge of collapsing on the couch. I apologize, Vicky. I don't mean to portray you negatively, but I simply believe it's unjust for you to burden me with household chores if I'm the wife in this situation. According to traditional gender roles, the responsibilities are supposed to be reversed. Honestly, it just doesn't seem fair. Towards the end of his speech, I noticed a crack in his voice, and immediately my heart softened. My poor husband was clearly going through a great deal of anguish and turmoil. I understand that depression is a genuine condition, and there are days when people struggle to get out of bed. Perhaps he was so debilitated that he couldn't do anything. So I decided to hold my tongue and lend a sympathetic ear to the situation. "I'm truly sorry, Oliver. From now on, you don't have to worry about making dinner. I'll take care of everything." I entered the kitchen and prepared dinner. Once it was ready and served, I ate in silence. Oliver, Hannah, Benjamin, and Lillian enjoyed their meal and engaged in lively conversation throughout the evening. They seemed to be having a wonderful time, not once including me in the discussion or even asking if I was all right, considering I had been silent since the embarrassing and, quite frankly, unjust argument that had taken place. I suppose they still hold the belief that I was the individual who fought for everything I was, primarily disturbed by Oliver's statement. I had grown accustomed to my in-laws treating me in that manner, but Oliver's words genuinely surprised me. Nevertheless, I let go of my pride and began taking on the responsibility of cooking and cleaning on my own. This added to my stress and exhaustion. Another month passed, and I continued to manage everything, being the sole provider. It was acceptable in this situation since my promotion came with a bonus and a slight salary increase. However, I knew that it couldn't remain like this indefinitely. Despite my growing concern, I allowed Oliver to wallow in his unhappiness because I believed he had the right to feel upset about the entire ordeal. Fortunately, we were lucky enough that he had the privilege of lounging around the house and nursing his broken heart. Others in desperate financial situations don't have the luxury of spending the whole day moping. Some individuals need to immediately start searching for work after being laid off or fired because they lack the financial security to support themselves and their families. This continued for an additional 2 months, and I noticed our household funds steadily decreasing. Although I initially believed I could sustain the household for a while, I began to realize that this couldn't be maintained for long. If we wanted to keep our daughters enrolled in private school, Oliver needed to find a job as soon as possible. One day, I sat down with him and conveyed this message. Oliver had been speaking to me in a very arrogant and curt manner, displaying an attitude similar to that of a dissatisfied child who didn't get what they wanted. I believe it's time for you to start searching for employment. Our lives cannot be sustained if we continue spending like this and relying solely on one source of income. But I thought you had a job and received a promotion. Do you recall how you're earning more money than me because I am currently unemployed? Yes, Oliver, I understand that you are still hurting, but we need to consider our circumstances. Our daughter's private school is quite expensive. Don't you think I am aware of that? Sometimes you can be so foolish. His tone began to soften as he noticed my eyes turning red and my face becoming puffy. I'm sorry, Vicky. You know I've been feeling stressed because of this situation. I understand that, babe, but we need to take action or our children will suffer. You're right. I'll start looking for work tomorrow. Actually, there's no need for you to search for anything. I believe I might be able to secure a job for you at my workplace. Yes, folks, you heard correctly. I was the one who arranged for him to have a job at my workplace. Through networking and diligently working, as well as gaining favor with my new boss, I managed to use my connections to help Oliver join me in the same field of work. We made the decision to work in various companies in order to avoid introducing a new element of potential stress that could harm our relationship. Both of us appreciated the idea of working separately, as it allowed us to maintain our individuality as individuals rather than just husband and wife. However, given our circumstances, I realized that we had very little choice, and at the time, I wondered how bad it could be. It turns out it was quite challenging, as what I'm about to share with you will surprise you. Several more months passed, and Oliver was making significant progress in his company. But what he revealed to me after only a couple of months of working there left me astonished. So, babe, I wanted to inform you that I've invited Mom, Hannah, and Ben over for dinner because I have some very important news to share with everyone. Could you please prepare dinner and make sure it's delicious, because this news is incredibly exciting. Oliver started doing a happy dance, and I joined in celebrating with him, even though I had no idea what was going on. I followed the instructions and prepared the dinner, welcoming our guests into our home once they arrived. As we engaged in some small talk at the beginning of the meal, Oliver interrupted all the conversations and said, "As you all know, I've gathered you here today to share some incredibly exciting news." Drum roll, please. Benjamin and Hannah placed their hands on the table abruptly, and we were all on the edge of our seats, eagerly awaiting the news. I have received a promotion. The room was filled with an immediate eruption of happiness and enthusiasm. People bounced around the table, celebrating this achievement. I must admit, I was a little taken aback by how quickly he received a promotion, considering he had only been here for a year. However, in that moment, I was too excited to care. I was just thrilled that he seemed to have overcome his previous slump. He even appeared to be taking better care of himself, which was all that mattered. But wait, everyone, hold on. I don't think Oliver is finished with his news. Please, go on, Oliver, tell them the rest. There was a slight hesitation as he spoke. Vicky, here you go, he said, handing me what looked like a hotel key card. Confusion washed over me, but then an idea sparked in my mind. Oh, babe, did you get us a hotel room to celebrate? How thoughtful of you. This is nice. Honestly, I think I needed something like this. I've been so stressed and exhausted. No, it's not a hotel room for us. It's a hotel room for you, Oliver clarified. I was obviously puzzled, and at that moment, I noticed that the rest of the in-laws didn't share my confusion. If If anything, they seemed somewhat pleased, as if they had successfully orchestrated everything and were waiting for the final piece to fall into place. I'm confused. What's going on? I asked. So Oliver approached us some time ago and told us about his new job and how well he was doing. We, mainly Hannah, suggested that due to his upcoming success and the increased bonuses he's been receiving, he should reevaluate his life choices and decisions. The words you spoke all those months ago when we last visited here were not well received. Hannah, what you are referring to? We simply suggested and subsequently concluded that you two needed some time apart. We believe that you have been mistreating him, and he deserves some tranquility for now, especially since he is earning a good income and no longer relies on you as much. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My heart was filled with immense pain, and my mind was overwhelmed with confusion. I was speechless. This man, my spouse whom I have been married to for the past decade, has chosen to treat me in this manner, either because of his sick and malicious family's desires to make my life miserable. I looked at Oliver with such intense hatred and anger that it caused him to lower his head in disappointment. Hold on, let me clarify. It didn't exactly happen like that. We simply thought that both of you needed some space from each other because we know that you have both been under a lot of stress. And since Oliver is now the primary breadwinner, we thought it would make the most sense for you to stay in a hotel for the time being. So you're evicting me? You're kicking me out of my own home, the home that we bought together? Oh, don't start with that nonsense about equal rights, Vicky. You know that your husband is the head of the household. It doesn't matter if you contributed financially, he still holds the authority and makes the decisions here. As an assistant, I can assist you in organizing your luggage. However, it is important for your husband to have his own personal space at the moment and appreciate the lifestyle he has created for himself. I was extremely angry and frustrated when I realized how people had the audacity to mistreat others. Although I knew that my in-laws disliked me, I was unaware of the extent of their anger. That night, as I tried to hold back my tears, screams, and the urge to set the house on fire, I noticed the amusement on my in-laws' faces, with my husband appearing slightly embarrassed and sheepish, as if he had made a trivial mistake on an exam rather than breaking my heart. Without uttering a word, I stormed up to my room, packed my belongings, and drove to my best friend's house to spend the night. Throughout the night, I cried and pondered what I had done to deserve such treatment. Due to my ambitious nature and stubbornness, my sadness quickly transformed into anger. This anger fueled my desire for revenge, despite feeling exhausted and drained from months of working tirelessly and enduring emotional abuse. Somehow, I managed to find the energy to conduct some investigation regarding the sudden bonuses my husband had received without my knowledge. Deciding to take a sick day the following day, I returned home to gather evidence while my husband was away. Since we both worked at the same company, I was aware of his working hours and planned accordingly. Upon arriving home, I promptly headed to his place of work, ready to commence my investigation. After a few hours, I stumbled upon some startling evidence. It appeared that he had been misappropriating funds from the company, devising a scheme to divert money without detection. To make matters worse, he was colluding with the new boss, as previously mentioned. I was transfixed by his computer screen for a solid 10 minutes, struggling to come to terms with the truth before my eyes. It seemed that his connection with the boss had facilitated his ability to evade consequences for his actions. Determined to gather as much evidence as possible, I saved all relevant emails, documents, and inconsistencies in the company's financial records onto a flash drive. Leaving the office, I returned to my room to gather my belongings, fully aware that I would not be returning for quite some time. Once settled at my best friend's house, I began organizing the collected information into a PowerPoint presentation, as I was determined to expose this individual and disrupt his life. After completing the presentation, I sent an email to my superior, attaching additional emails involving higher-ranking individuals and those affiliated with human resources. I emphasized the importance of urgent news that needed to be shared and requested an immediate emergency meeting to discuss the discoveries I had made. The email was crafted to pique their curiosity and ensure that they would agree to hold an emergency meeting on such short notice. A separate message was sent to my spouse via email, informing him of an urgent meeting that he needed to attend. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss plans for the upcoming fiscal year. Both my superiors and my husband promptly responded, and fortunately, they were all available to attend the meeting. The following day arrived, and I was filled with excitement and anticipation for what was about to unfold. I made sure to dress in my finest attire, aiming to look my absolute best for this momentous occasion. The meeting room was already occupied by most of the attendees when I entered. The only ones missing were my deceitful husband and my deceitful boss. When they finally arrived, they seemed momentarily flustered upon realizing the presence of numerous important individuals in the room. Perhaps their guilty conscience was reminding them of their wrongdoings. Nonetheless, I commenced the meeting, presenting all the information in a clear and concise manner. As the presentation progressed, the room was filled with astonishment. My boss and Oliver, my husband, turned red and began to panic as everyone's gaze shifted towards them, filled with anger and disgust. One of my superiors even stated that they deserved to be imprisoned for their embezzlement. At one point, Oliver glared at me with intense hostility, but I returned the same expression of hatred and disgust, further exacerbating his discomfort. He finally stood up and confronted me, questioning my motives and labeling me as a wretched individual. "The gremlin is deceiving everyone. Don't trust a single word she utters," he exclaimed. "I will take legal action against you for defamation. I will sue you and initiate a divorce, and I will ruin you." The man I married many years ago has completely disappeared. What stood before me now was a full-fledged monster. He tried to leave, but fortunately, I discreetly called for security in advance to guard the door, as I had informed them about the information I discovered. Oliver felt ashamed when he was confronted by two strong men blocking his escape at the entrance. My untrustworthy boss, who was involved in all the illegal activities, started muttering about how his life is ruined, while Oliver continued to embarrass himself by attempting to push past the imposing men. I spent a significant 30 minutes sharing with everyone the information I uncovered, and once I finished, both men appeared defeated. You can probably imagine what happened next, but just in case you can't, both Oliver and my boss were immediately terminated from their positions and charged with embezzling the company's funds for their personal gain. They were escorted off the premises, but not before being swarmed by a frenzy of media attention. Oh, did I forget to mention that I also contacted news organizations and gossip magazines to be prepared to capture the expressions of horror and embarrassment on Oliver's face? Well, I did, and it brought me great satisfaction to witness it. Seeing his face featured prominently on the front page of the local newspaper the next morning filled me with joy. He deserved it after the way I was treated poorly by him. He is presently incarcerated, attempting to secure release on bail. However, there have also been investigations and assumptions that my brother-in-law, Benjamin, may have been involved in the scheme. With this newfound information, I felt compelled to gather more evidence. It turns out that Benjamin, who works in the field of information technology, was indeed assisting Oliver and my boss in their embezzlement activities. To make matters worse, it seems that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were also part of the scheme. It all started to make sense. This is why my in-laws and husband kicked me out of the house. They wanted to remove me so they could continue their criminal activities. There are speculations that Benjamin will join Oliver in prison, and I'm certain that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law are feeling anxious, as they too will soon be exposed. These past few months have been incredibly tumultuous, but I'm grateful that I managed to uncover this distressing information in a timely manner before things could escalate further. It goes without saying that my actions did not go unnoticed. Not only did I expose my terrible husband and his dreadful family, but I was also approached by my superiors. They thoroughly reviewed my work history, including my accomplishments and achievements, and decided to promote me. Not only that, they even offered me my old boss's position. I will begin my new role next week. This promotion comes with an even larger bonus as well. I am thrilled to announce that I have been granted an even higher salary increase. I am filled with anticipation as I prepare to commence this new chapter in my life. Furthermore, I have made the decision to initiate the legal proceedings for my divorce. It is evident that I cannot continue to be associated with an individual who is engaged in criminal activities. I anticipate that obtaining custody of our children will not pose a significant challenge, considering that I am their mother. Moreover, my financial stability and impeccable character will undoubtedly work in my favor. I am ecstatic and overjoyed about embarking on this exciting new journey. Ultimately, it seems that everyone involved will receive their just desserts.